Many of you are probably used to images such as these.
This is your brain. This is drugs. This is your brain on drugs.
Actually, that's an egg frying. This, on the other hand, is your brain on drugs, specifically psilocybin. A drug is a chemical substance with known physiological effects on humans and other animals. This can range from anything from caffeine to cocaine. In general, we tend to think of drugs as existing in two major categories: pharmaceuticals, which we tend to think of as the good kind, and recreational drugs, which we like to think of as the bad kind. So, what I'm about to say may surprise you, but by definition, the only thing that differentiates these two classes of drugs is the intention of the user. There are no chemical aspects or physiological effects that differentiate these two classes of drugs. In fact, more people die each year from simple pain relievers than all illegal drugs combined. And of those caused by illegal drugs, the vast majority are due to street narcotics such as cocaine and heroin. Almost none are due to psychedelics. Psychedelics are psychoactive drugs whose main action is to alter our perception and cognition. This is typically done by agonizing serotonergic receptors in the brain. The function of stimulating these serotonergic receptors is to improve the connection between our cortex and our thalamus. The thalamus is responsible for receiving inputs from our senses, and the cortex is responsible for putting together those inputs and making sense of them. Before psychedelics were made illegal nearly half a century ago, studies on the drugs actually led to the discovery of the neurotransmitter serotonin, which is thought to lead to our feelings of happiness and well-being, and used today to treat conditions such as depression and anxiety. So let's take a look at society's perception of psychedelic drug use through history in the United States. When we think about psychedelic use, we tend to think of the 60s. What most people don't realize is the 60s was the decade of recreational psychedelic use. However, in the medical community, there was great hope that LSD could revolutionize psychiatry as early as the 50s. Today, experts say that this hope may not have been misplaced. So, you might ask, if researchers knew as early as the 50s, nearly 60 years ago, that LSD and other psychedelics had incredible potential to treat mental illnesses, why has there been limited additional research done on what could be the penicillin of psychiatry? Well, this happened because the use of LSD and the anti-war movement became so closely intertwined. The government was eager to control its use. In an attempt to contain this chaos, the government banned LSD. However, in order to ban LSD, they associated it with extreme risks. The most believable risk being that you could get addicted to LSD, when in fact there are no physiological addictive properties of LSD. This fear was inserted into the minds of American people via ads such as the one you saw at the beginning of this presentation, and this one, which is a trailer for an anti-marijuana propaganda film named Reefer Madness.
Smoking the soul-destroying reefer, they find a moment's pleasure, but at a terrible price. Debauchery, violence, murder, suicide, and the ultimate end of the marijuana addict. Hopeless insanity. See this important film now, before it is too late.
Even though we laugh at these ridiculous ads now, these perhaps illegitimate fears are still prevalent in our society and affect our perception of psychedelic drug use to this day. This fear of psychedelics is reflected in our legislation. The Comprehensive Drug Abuse Prevention and Control Act of 1970, signed by President Nixon, classified drugs into 5 major schedules, ranging from most harmful to least harmful. Marijuana and most psychedelics are classified as Schedule I drugs. defining them as having very high potential for abuse and no specified medical use or treatment in the United States. Now, I don't know about you, but I would be much more concerned if my child were doing meth, which happens to be a Schedule II drug, than smoking a joint, which is a Schedule I drug. So why should we care so much about society's perception of drugs? Well, because our need to classify drugs as pharmaceutical good drugs or recreational bad drugs may have been hindering our ability to treat mental illnesses for the past 40 years. Fortunately, in spite of the restrictions on drugs, there has been a recent push for research of the potential medical benefits of psychedelic drug use. MAPS, the Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Studies, is a nonprofit research and education organization that develops medical, legal, and cultural contexts for people to benefit from the careful uses of psychedelics and marijuana. Researchers believe that the use of psychedelics in psychiatry can cure patients with debilitating illnesses such as post-traumatic stress disorder and depression in as little as 3 to 4 sessions. Not only is this a cure for an illness that we currently only treat, it's fast and affordable. Currently, MAPS is undertaking a nearly $20 million project to make MDMA into an FDA-approved prescription medicine by 2021. However, organizations such as these face challenges posed by the lingering stigmas associated with these drugs. Researchers at MAPS have stated that they heavily focus on avoiding terms that may come across as hippie-ish when presenting their research because of the negative connotations associated with these words are so powerful that they could illegitimize their entire presentation. Even though researchers believe that words such as enlightenment and bliss could and should be used to describe mental states achieved via the drug, they know that if they want to be taken seriously, they need to present their research in a very conservative manner. Pharmaceutical companies aren't the easiest sale to begin with. The main challenge for doctors and researchers lies in convincing pharmaceutical companies to spend millions on research and developing a therapy that could end up challenging the need for antidepressants. Why would they want to sell 4 doses of MDMA when they could sell a lifetime supply of antidepressants and anti-anxiety drugs? In order for these drugs to become available in psychotherapy, society needs to get on board. So, what does this mean for us now? There's a lot of potential use for psychedelics in society today. If organizations such as MAPS want to produce a successful psychedelic pharmaceutical drug, society is going to have to change their perception and drop the stigma that has been around since the 60s. It's important to examine all the potential treatments and cures for mental illnesses, especially because the United States is in the middle of a mental illness epidemic. In order to make progress on this issue, society needs to progress with open-minded skepticism. Thank you for joining me on this trip through time.